There's an expensive maintenance task that most drivers put off as long as possible, and that's changing the cam belt or the timing chain. So in this video, we're going to look at what this belt or chain is, what it does, and how important it is to observe the correct change intervals for it, and look at the catastrophic damage that can happen to an engine when the timing chain or the cam belt is not changed at the correct intervals and eventually breaks on you. So here in the UK, the cost of replacing a cam belt or a timing chain is typically somewhere between £400 and upwards of over £1,000, depending on the complexity of the engine. Some of these V6 engines have very complicated routes, and it's a very fiddly job to get the cam belt actually changed on those. And other engines, it's relatively straightforward. They're a simple design, and replacement is rather easy and cheap. So because of the cost and inconvenience, you can understand why drivers leave it to the last minute. You see this as well with tyres. People often push the limits on the tyre wear down to the legal bare minimum before they actually get the tyre replaced. And this mentality of putting things off as long as possible is often a bad decision that comes back to bite the owner of the vehicle. They might think that they can put off the cam belt or the timing chain replacement as long as possible and then replace it when things start to go wrong. But the reality is that these things often just break and you have catastrophic damage, often requiring a complete overhaul, rebuild, or even replacement of the engine. So what does this belt or timing chain actually do? Well, it connects the crankshaft at the bottom of the engine with the camshaft at the top of the engine, and it maintains the speed and equilibrium. You want the valves operated by the camshaft to be opening and closing at the correct points in the engine's combustion cycle. So thinking of your typical 4-stroke engine, you will have one complete revolution of the camshaft at the top, and that'll be equal to 2 revolutions of the crank. So if this gets out of sync, the valves are going to be open at the wrong point and the pistons are going to be crashing into them. That results in bent valves. It can damage the pistons themselves. Generally, the catastrophic damage that's caused requires a complete overhaul of the engine. So cam belts are typically made of a fairly heavy grade of rubber. They've got little teeth in just to keep everything synchronized, and the chain looks much like the chain you would get on a bicycle. So being made of metal, it's often more resilient than the rubberized ones, which tend to degrade and crack over time. But even the metal ones can stretch over time, and that can lead to timing issues and timing problems. So obviously it's going to vary depending on the complexity of the engine. A fairly modern engine with variable valve timing will go a long way to correct any timing issues and make sure everything is running as smoothly as possible, whereas maybe an older, simpler engine will experience misfires much sooner should the belt or the chain start to fail. You have tensioners along the way that maintain the tension. You don't want the vibrations affecting the chain or the belt as it rotates, because that's going to increase the wear and tear on it. So the tensioner just keeps everything in place, and if that tensioner fails, you have potential there for misfires and problems. And in some engines, it's often the tensioner that fails before the cam belt. So it's good just to be aware of the weak spots on the engine. Is it the cam belt or the cam chain that goes, or is it the tensioner? And if it's the tensioner, you usually have warning noises that happen on the tensioner side of the engine that give you an indication that all is not well and you need to get in there and have a look. So generally speaking, chains are inside the engine lubricated by engine oil, and the belts are on the outside of the engine, not lubricated by engine oil, which is where they're likely to crack and degrade just as they're exposed to air and the heat cycles that go on. But some manufacturers have also used wet belts, which are inside the engine and are coated with engine oil. So there's a lot of criticism as to those. Some people are big fans of them, others really criticize them. So please let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on these wet belt systems that some manufacturers are providing. So the early warning signs are often very subtle to notice. It might be a misfire as the car is idling. It might be a loss of power at certain points in the RPM range. It may just be a little bit of a rattle or noise from the timing side of the engine as things are slightly moving out of alignment. All of those should be investigated. Now, when should you get your belt or your chain replaced? Well, the manufacturer will specify an interval. They generally give you a number of years and a number of miles, and it's whichever comes soonest, whichever comes first. So as a typical rule of thumb, we can assume about 70,000 miles or 7 years, but some manufacturers require changes more frequently than that. I've also noticed situations where the service book that you get with your car when you purchase it, say 10, 15 years ago, is making one recommendation, whereas the manufacturers have updated that recommendation. They'll often shorten the lifespan of these timing chains or timing belts. And they do that because they've observed problems developing. So to cover their backs, they're recommending that those belts and chains are changed more frequently. I would certainly not stick to the manufacturer's recommendations and be even more cautious. I want to keep your car and my car in as good condition as possible. And it just seems a bit of a risk pushing the cam belt or the timing chain lifespan as long as possible. So if you're getting near to the mileage specified or the years specified, get that belt changed. Now, in a lot of engines, the water pump is also incorporated into the belt. You need to take the belt off in order to change the water pump. So if that's the case, it's a good idea on most engines to change the water pump at the same time. You're just looking at a little bit of extra cost for the water pump, say 60 or 70 pounds, and that saves a very expensive repair further down the line, because often these plastic impellers on water pumps will fail, and it's often after you've had the cam belt done that they start to fail and degrade, which effectively means you have to take all the engine covers off and replace the belt as well, or get the belt off in order to get to the water pump. So it's a minor additional labour cost to change the water pump at the same time, but it's a big extra cost to change it at a later point when it fails. So I'd certainly recommend that you look into that if your engine needs that doing at some point. If they're prone to fail, if they've got these plastic impellers, look to get that renewed at the same time you get the belt done. So I have seen manufacturers specifying belt changes as low as 40,000 miles, and some pushing it up to 100,000 miles, and some are saying 4 years and others say about 7 years. So there is a big degree of variation, which you would expect. There's a lot of different types of engine out there, and also the way we use the engine has a bearing on the wear and tear. If we were doing long cruises on the motorways, the freeways, the highways at constant RPMs, you're not getting as many heat cycles into the belt or the chain, so it's typically going to last longer than someone doing lots of short journeys with lots of speed changes that create shocks and stresses on the belt component. So check your service book, check online at the manufacturer's current recommendations for your car. If you're coming up to the years specified or the mileage specified for a cam belt change or a timing change, it's time to look into that. Get your car booked in and get that sorted. It's just sad in my book to see drivers neglecting this, taking a chance, and then ending up with a massive repair bill that in a lot of cases write the car off. It's beyond economical repair just because they didn't do this maintenance thing. And shop around, you'll find main dealer prices substantially higher than a lot of independent specialists. So I hope you found this video useful. Please boot the like button. It really does help us to get out there. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so. We've got lots of other tips and maintenance videos coming up to help you to extend the lifespan of your car and get the most enjoyment from your car. And I've lined this video up for you that you should find really interesting. Thanks for watching. See you in this next video.